he broke into LA Zoo and allegedly took a koala.
Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Raven.
Welcome to the tie-in.
We're back. October. It's happening. I can't believe that I always say this every time, but it's time warp. And I've been in LA the last couple of weeks, so it's been great. Been down here networking, and yeah, it's just so chill. It's compared to San Francisco, it's really chill.
Even with the networking, like even with the, the grind of getting out and meeting people, you're still finding a chill vibe. I'm just
Yeah, totally. I'm just not driving in traffic.
Oh, okay.
I booked the place kind of like central to everything.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I don't really need to travel that much. It's pretty ideal. Feels like I'm on
Good.
vacation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's great.
Busy vacation.
Yeah, I know. This is a weird kind of vortex of, we just had New York Climate Week. This week is Toronto Climate Week. And, my team's been kind of going in those different directions, getting updates, getting, a lot of cool stuff happening out there. Interesting ways of thinking about things. People are doing great work. It's fun to feel that energy, but also I think it is a little nerve-wracking to know that we still have a lot to do. And I think we can tend to get caught up in the swirl of, everybody's doing great things and whatever, and forget that, there's still a whole swath of business and a whole swath of the supply chain and whatnot that really, need some help or need, some inspiration or whatever. So, that's the kind of stuff I've been thinking about this week.
Yeah. And it's also like, I feel like everybody tries to cram everything into these couple of months, a few months. And it's just like, wow, can we not spread stuff out over the year?
Oh, yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, it's a tough time of year with that and the holidays coming up and all. I mean, gosh, we're going to blink and it's already going to be the end of the year. So,
yeah.
Just work hard. You got it, guys.
Yeah, we got this.
We got it. But fun for this episode, we're collaborating with the Jackson Wild Film Festival, which is a nonprofit that brings together filmmakers, scientists, and conservationists from around the world to inspire action for our planet. And every year they host the Jackson Wild Media Awards, which shine a spotlight on some of the most powerful stories about nature and science and conservation that are being told today. And they also have the Innovation for Green Production Award. So
yeah, totally. And we had the pleasure of speaking with one of the nominees of the Innovation in Green Production Awards, Tony Lee. Mm-hmm. And he's the producer and director of P22, The Legacy Lives On. And this is a touching story of the Brad Pitt of mountain lions in Griffith Park in the heart of Los Angeles. So it's totally worth a watch and actually paying attention to the story and the way that nature and people can coexist. We had a great chat.
Mm-hmm. I know, such a lovely guy. And that's the reason we're doing this podcast, is to highlight these people behind the scenes doing great work in entertainment. And, we've talked to all sorts of people, from film and TV to production, folks in various departments, clean tech, music, thought leaders in the space, just really trying to round out and really show what's going on from the people doing the work behind the scenes. So, like and subscribe. We need your help in the algorithms. That's a thing. And share with your friends. Honestly, spread the word. It's really important to get this work out. And definitely, we appreciate the collaboration with Jackson Wild for this, and really appreciate all the work that folks are doing out there behind the scenes to advance sustainable production. So keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up, y'all. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the tie-in. Today, we're talking with Tony Lee, the producer and director of P22, The Legacy Lives On. This production was nominated as a 2025 finalist at the Jackson Wild Media Awards in the Innovation in Green Production category. We'll be talking about P22, The Legacy Lives On, the story, and all the planning and sustainability efforts that went into it. Tony, welcome to the tie-in.
It's great to be here as a guest. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Tony, it's so nice to have you. And it's so nice to be able to talk about this production. But first, before we dive into those details, I'm really curious, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Well, I'm a natural history filmmaker and a documentary filmmaker. I've been doing it for quite a few years now, and I've worked for most of the main broadcasters, such as the BBC, and worked for National Geographic. And I actually lived in the United States for a long time because I got myself a green card. So I was living and working in California. And so I was very passionate about the wildlife there and the environmental issues. So, and 10 years ago, I actually won the Special Jury Award at the Jackson Hole Wildlife Film Festival, as it was called then. And that was a great boost for me. And that gave me an idea, which set me on the long and very rewarding path for P22.
Well, that's awesome. So long time coming with this
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
If we go back even further, I first went to Jackson Hole in 1999, and I met one of the cameramen who helped with the P22 story, Lance Jeffrey. And so part of the green innovation, it's all local crews who made the story, even though I'm British and I moved to California. All the crews are indigenous LAites, such as Lance Jeffrey. 10 years ago, I met my second cameraman who did the bulk of the filming, called Alex Rappaport. And so between the two and Justin Ogden and Wade Davis, the four of them actually made the film.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's set the stage here. Can you tell us what is P22?
Well, P22 was a very famous mountain lion who lived in Griffith Park. He was born in the Santa Monica Mountains, quite a few miles away, and he made this incredible story when he was made this incredible journey when he was about 18 months old. He traveled across two freeways, the 405 and the 101. And anyone who lives in LA, let alone California, knows how difficult it is to cross those freeways. But he
Totally.
did it, which is really quite incredible. And he lived in Griffith Park for many years. Sadly passed away in, I think it was the end of 2022 now. And it was just a huge outpouring of grief, but also affection, because he really was an ambassador for wildlife, especially urban wildlife.
Yeah.
Tony, just just so I can wrap my head around how old would P22 have been, and how big would he have been?
Well, he was an old mountain lion. We don't know exactly when he was born, but the first sightings, the first trackings, I think, were about 2012, around about. So he was probably about 2 years old. And so he was about possibly 12 years old when he died, which that's probably, I think, quite good for a mountain lion, because he lived on his own in Griffith Park, and so he didn't have any other mountain lions, no territorial fights, and no competition from other mountain lions. So he was like the lord of a manor, because he had his own private deer park.
Right.
As you know, Griffith Park is full of deer. And so he really was king of the castle. And his only problems was really traffic and humans. And he did have various adventures during his time. He very famously in 2015, 2016, he broke into LA Zoo and allegedly took a koala. And so that put him on the map, as it were, the celebrity road map in LA. And he had other adventures. He was caught underneath someone's house, and there were helicopters flying above.
Wow.
When there was a great quote from the London Times, he has all the list hallmarks of an A-list celebrity. He knows how to be empathetic, and the camera adores him, and he's mastered the art of being elusive. So he was a really true Hollywood cat in that respect.
Right. Wears
Totally.
sunglasses at during the
Yeah.
day or at
And when
night.
you have helicopters flying around, like, trying to find you, that is true celebrity right there. So cool. But I guess, also what's really neat about this story and about P22 is that this kind of brings I don't know, the coexistence of the wildlife and the city together. Like it's just such a remarkable I don't know, remarkable balance of nature and urban development.
It is. The word coexistence. He has taught us that we can coexist with wildlife, especially big cats and big predators, in the second biggest metropolis in the United States,
Mhm.
LA. And if the model is successful in LA, it can be replicated elsewhere. We can live with predators. And there is stats that you're more likely to be struck down by lightning than to be attacked by a mountain lion. It does happen. We know it happens because we've seen, annually reports of sometimes
Mhm.
when we've maybe encroached on their territory or done something foolish. But the statistics are so rare. And the camera trap showed that during his tenure in Griffith Park, he actively avoided people. For example, Camtrail showed whenever a jogger runs past, 30 seconds before P22 would disappear. So even though he was had this territory, which was only 8 square miles, he mastered the art of concealment.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. So now in terms of the production, so yes, you just alluded to it there, but you set up motion sensors and other types of camera equipment throughout the park I don't know, to film him. Um, so first, I guess, were people already doing this? Was there already film
Yes,
tracking happening and you were using that information?
Absolutely, yes. So the Griffith Park connectivity study, there's a great story which I tell in the film. Miguel Ordinana, who works for the Natural History Museum of LA County, he was part of a connectivity study, and he was the one who discovered P22. And he just saw this big puma butt at the end of the camera trail. He was so used to bobcats and deer. And then he saw a puma, and it was really, as he describes it, like seeing the chupacabra, like the mythical beast of Mexico, and seeing it on the camera trail. So there were camera traps already set up by Miguel and a man called Matthew Whitmire, who very much helped me with some of the footage. And that's been taken on again by other people throughout the last few years, and also the National Park Service, who use the data to try and work out P22's movements, because they captured him shortly after and radio collared him during his years at Griffith Park because he was just a prime candidate for study.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like um, you're, you worked with multiple organizations to bring this project to life. Was there anyone in particular who, was especially instrumental in keeping the momentum for this project?
Well, definitely have to mention Beth Pratt from the National Wildlife Federation. She was campaigning for Save LA Cougars, and part of the story of P22, because of the two crossings, is building a wildlife bridge over the 101 in the Santa Monica Mountains, where P22 was born, near Liberty Canyon. And during the making of the film, it was very instrumental in like raising awareness.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that the film has helped raise awareness for connectivity. And so the wildlife bridge is going to be complete next year after a few years in development. And I think the cost was ended up being something like 95 million. But
Oh,
Wow.
yes, it just goes to show that, there is money, and obviously in LA, which is one of the wealthiest cities in the country, and it's named the um, Wallace Annenberg Bridge. She sadly passed away, but she very recently, but she was a philanthropist, and money from donors and just money from a general
Mhm.
public who had heard about P22's story and wanted to get involved or wanted to contribute, which is all part of his appeal as this great ambassador for urban wildlife.
mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of this work, um, through your production, you also aim to keep it as low footprint as possible. I read somewhere, obviously you're using solar for your battery systems. That's exciting. You're now into our territory here, and something that we love and we talk a lot about here. But from a production standpoint, can you tell us a little bit about how you went about doing the production, what that planning process was like, and also bringing, what's it like to bring along your crew and tell them, okay, look, we're doing it like this, and this is how we're doing it. Was it tough to get buy-in?
Well, I self-funded the documentary. So at the beginning, there was a budgetary constraint, which is great, but it really shows that really small films, these kind of grassroots films can work. And as I said, if you get people on board, I mean, as you know, that some of the biggest factors in footprints is air travel and transport travel. So it just immediately made sense because of these Jackson Hole connections. I already had two great cameramen who I met at Jackson Hole at the Wildlife Festival and who I trusted and who came from a conservation and a people and nature storytelling background. So I trusted them with the shots, and I knew that, and we're immediately simpatico in terms of, our philosophy and what we wanted the film to represent. So I had the advantage right there, and that can only come from a festival, a network like Jackson Hole, which is really one of a kind because you seldom meet so many people all at once in one part of the world who have a similar background and philosophy of life. So that was an immediate advantage. And through that network, it was obviously just contacting people like Miguel and Beth Pratt, the National Wildlife Federation or the Natural History Museum of LA County, and them giving us permission to film with their experts or on their land. There are some sequences I did with a very important character, Alan Salazar, a First Nation from Chumash, Gabrielina, Tongva. It was very important for me for this film, again, because of the grassroots, to show the First Nations of California and represent their voices. And so he was a storyteller who was very instrumental actually in telling us about P22's passing, because the First Nations have tremendous beliefs about wildlife and what happens to the spirit of the wildlife when they pass. So P22 was buried in where he was born, back in the Santa Monica Mountains, and he had a tribal ceremony, which is very nice. And so that support system is very important if you're making a film like this. I think having that kind of impact campaign, and to have that impact campaign, you do need those organizations to help you. And what's great about those organizations, they already have a built-in following, and P22's fan base was built in through Save LA Cougars, through the National Wildlife Federation, through the American Museum of Natural History, LA County. And so you can use that social media to generate interest for the film. And so that was very important. And so with that, we also filmed on neighboring land around Griffith Park. You probably know how expensive it is to get film permits in LA.
Yeah.
I think it could be like 800, £1,000, $1,000 to get a film permit, and more if you're filming on private land. And so we benefited from people who actually owned land next to Griffith Park. And the Friends of Griffith Park, which is an organization of landowners and collective landowners who passionately care about wildlife, they helped as well. And so we had this great support system. And you have to hustle, as a producer. If you're on a shoestring budget, you have to pick up the phone and email and persuade people to do it. And so because of my producer background, whether it's for BBC or Nat Geo, I've spent many years hustling, and so getting things for free. And my camera crew really embraced that green production. Davis Huber drove an electric vehicle, one of the cameramen, to the shoot every day. And when we filmed at the library with Alan Salazar and also at the American Museum of Natural History. And Alex, who I met in Jackson Hole, he's got an environmental background. He was very passionate, and so they were collecting litter. We were filming in the Santa Monica Mountains, and not only did they not use plastic, they were actually collecting plastic
Hmm.
whilst they were filming, which is a great story. So him and his assistant were actually, it was tidier when they left when they had found the location. So, for example, when we filmed Beth in the Santa Monica Mountains, it's a beautiful day, but people do leave their litter when they go out hiking, but that was all removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe people still do that. Just like cigarette butts. I mean, it's when I see, someone's just flicking a cigarette butt in the street. I'm like, what are you doing? Just
Yeah.
people still do that.
I mean, yeah, especially with fire
I
risk
know.
and
It's
whatnot in
crazy.
certain places. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that you guys left it basically like a handprint on, the scene instead of you know, leaving a mark, leaving a footprint, if you will. That's really cool. And also one of the things I just, find so wonderful is you know, yes, we often think of sustainability in the environmental kind of realm, right? And all the various things we can do to reduce the impacts and whatnot. But also there's the social side too. And I love how you brought that in with talking to the indigenous folks, right? And kind of bringing in their perspective as well.
That
So.
was really important for me. And if you listen, the music, it's all Tongva music. So again, through the networks, through the indigenous networks, I found a composer called Lazara Avuzu who did the music, all Tongva music, and he had this library of music, and it was deer flute, a rattlesnake flute, all these kind of natural sounds and soundscapes, which he let me use the library. So that indigenous music was really important, especially as we told and evolved P22 story, especially since his passing and his burial, because the second half of the film is what happens to P22 and what his legacy is after he's passed on, and with the wildlife bridge. And the Tonga Gabrielina, they have um, a kind of uh, mythology about the Rainbow Bridge, and that replicates the Wildlife Bridge. And Alan Salazar said when he heard about the Wildlife Bridge, the crossing, it immediately made him think of the Rainbow Bridge, which is one of their kind of mythical creation stories, which going from the Channel Islands to the land, and the kind of music that we used to tell that story as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
cool.
so cool. It almost feels like a slight new genre, a new style of production, right? I mean, in its own way, especially now. We've talked a lot about it in the podcast, but it's a time where, with there was a lot of challenges in the industry, and now you're almost taking it back to like the grassest of roots in this thing, lower
Yeah.
budget, indie, but also this thing has global reach and global appeal.
I
Mhm.
do believe that, and we've got some, we do have that global reach with P22 because of his status, because he's been written about all over the world. The Rolling Stone magazine, the New Yorker,
Yeah.
it's incredible. The London Times. He literally is a cat that, has gone around the world, become an ambassador, and went to the concert after he had passed away. Beth Pratt did this rock concert almost in Griffith Park a couple of years. And the Tokens, the Lion Sleeps Tonight, they were actually playing that.
Mm.
It was just this huge celebrity status that he's achieved. But what you were saying about grassroots, I firmly believe you just need a really good story.
Yeah.
And the story transcends anything. It will transcend the budget, it will transcend people's viewing habits. And that really impressed me because I lived in LA for years. For me, P22 was a gift. When I first moved out to LA, I wanted to do something, and I thought, what can I possibly do? I could do like the parakeets in Griffith Park. I could do, but no one thought there'd be a mountain lion. So when he showed up in 2012, I think he was just a gift for everyone in many different kinds of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so great to have that. I learned kind of a new term, and this concept of science storytelling. Can you help us understand like what that is and how it differs from like maybe like a climate storytelling kind of
Or a general
description
documentary.
or
I mean,
general
how's
documentary?
From my understanding, it's through character and how science can be accessible and relate to the average viewer. And this was very immediate to me once when I was in Hollywood with Beth Pratt, and Beth has this great story of carrying around the cardboard cutout of P22. And we're in Hollywood with this cardboard cutout, but people immediately started to take notice. And we're up against Batman and Superman and Disney, and we're right on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
right.
People take notice. And so if you can cut through the noise, because you've got to remember that unfortunately not everyone is a community of Jackson Hole, and
Sure.
you really need to punch through to get their attention, especially today when there's so much content. And so science storytelling is my way of, let's just take this great character and all these great people who are passionately care, and they've got their own stories to tell, and just entertain them for the 22 minutes and take them out of what they normally do, understand, and tell them about connectivity, tell them about fragmentation, tell them about habitat loss, and that there are things that we can actively get involved in. We can all play our part, whether it's through plastic use or if it's through helping with a wildlife crossing. There's a P22 day every October, which is run by Save LA Cougars, and Californianites can get involved. They can go to Griffith Park and learn more about wildlife, or they can go on hikes, to find out more about the ecology, which is often run by Save LA Cougars or the American Museum of Natural History. And so it's really about involvement, I think, scientific storytelling and just making it accessible and fun. So, we're not watching just a PBS documentary. We're not
Yeah.
we're not we're not being talked down to. We're not being
Yeah.
it's not homework. That's a good phrase to use. It's not homework, as it's learning shouldn't have to be homework. It shouldn't have to be hard. And so when you've got these great characters like P22, it makes it a lot more fun, I
Right.
think.
And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be politicized either. I mean,
Yeah,
this is like nature it's here. It was here before us, and it's going to be here after us.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, some of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's drill down into just some of the sustainable practices that just seem to be, normal for your production. Can you just help orient us, how big was your crew to get a sense, and then, like what are some of the things you
Yeah.
did just normally?
Sure. Well, I started off on paper, just writing a script and plotting out the sequences and what needed to be told, because one thing about being green is not to be wasteful.
Mhm.
So, in terms of your footprint, don't overshoot. Don't have any more days. As I was saying, because I was self-financing, I was very conscious about the number of days. I think it ended up to being about 7 days in total. So each day was carefully scheduled, and so we could get a maximum time out of location. I mean,
Mhm.
again, this is my BBC Nat Geo training. You're not driving around all day from location to location. You're going to one location and see how much you can use and what can you get out of that location. So for example, I talked to Alex when you go to the Santa Monica location. What can you get there? You can get the general views. You can get obviously the highway, so you can get deer. You can get the wildflowers. And okay, we're going to have two contributors who are going to schedule in the morning and afternoon for you to film again, and with a list of questions. So you've got to be very prepared as a
Yeah.
producer.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a bread and butter. And also in terms of being paperless, obviously, and so everything was done electronically, whether it's notes on iPads or just through, iPhones or emails. It's so much easier nowadays with the new technology that everything is paper free. And really, really thinking about your carbon footprint, and again, whether it's disposable waste food, as I mentioned, or plastics, and just keeping a very low footprint. You don't need a ton of people to turn up with generators and cameras, and sometimes you just need one person who really knows what they're doing and has got that clear shot list in mind, and that great character, which is really important. And so it's very interesting doing something small scale, because I have done big scale in the past for the BBC or Nat Geo, and it is wonderful to have these big jibs and, you know, big crews, but bigger doesn't necessarily mean better.
Yeah.
And so I think P22 has taught me that. And I'd just like to mention, as a quick shout out, to Richard Brock. I don't know if you've come across him, but he sadly passed away in December. He was a real champion for small scale films, which you can watch his films. He started off as a BBC producer for 35 years, and then when he went independent, and he started the Richard Brock Initiative, and he just went out with a cameraman to shoot films. And even though it was rough and ready, he was very adamant that if it reached the right people, for example, the government in a lake around Madagascar who are cutting reeds, but they don't know how detrimental it is to the lemur, then he would make sure that his films are shown to those people. And so he had that kind of impact campaign. And similarly with P22, doing our outreach and making sure those films are shown to the public around California, whether it's the donors or the wildlife landowners. So that is very important, not only to make the film, but what are you going to do with your film afterwards? What's your impact campaign? What's your strategy? And because, as we were saying, there's so much noise out there. You've really got to use social media. You've got to use these organizations. You've got to use a built-in fan base. Otherwise, your film could get very easily lost on YouTube or social media, because, as we were saying, it's competing against Batman and everything else. So.
But no one has a character like this.
No, no one has
Fine.
no. And the gorgeous thing about P22, everyone recognizes, you know, he's a Brad Pitt of mountain lions. He was a particularly handsome individual. Everyone called him the Brad Pitt. He's extremely photogenic. You probably saw the Steve Winter photos, very famous photos by Nat Geo photographer Steve Winter in front of a Hollywood sign. So he mastered the art of using the camera
I love
to his
it.
advantage.
One thing I just want to touch on before we do another topic is we hear it a lot as well from the CBC, people who worked in Canada, and the BBC and so on, is you do learn to do a lot with less. I just want to acknowledge that. You know, we hear it about it in Canada a lot, and a lot of people come out of theater and so on. So just to note, I mean, that's an incredible skill to be able to squeeze out every last bit with very limited budget and scope. So that's great.
And I'm just curious, how did you approach understanding your carbon footprint? Did you calculate your carbon footprint, or just, you know, what was that like?
Yeah, well, I've done a few courses with Albert, part of BAFTA. So I understood some of the kind of frameworks. And I actually did a seminar when I was working with a cohort, and I actually presented carbon free. I think it's something that you intrinsically do and learn on the job as well as part of your training. And if you've, you know, done TV or production after a while, you know where you can cut corners. There is, as I said, there is so much waste, whether it's with gas or transport or personnel. And so just think where you can keep things to a minimum in terms of equipment or battery, or I think the humans, obviously humans are the biggest. So double up. You don't necessarily need a cameraman and sound recordist. Luckily, the ones I had, you know, Alex was very good at sound. Sound can always trip you up, but if you master the sound, it's sometimes a lot. He always says it's a lot better than vision, because you can correct vision, but you can't really correct sound in many cases if you get bad sound. And investing in good microphones, he was very adamant about that. And so just look at the technology where you can also save as well. And as I said, it all goes down to preparation in terms of knowing your sequence and being prepared. And the great thing that BBC taught me was research and like talk. It's so easy nowadays on Zoom, but talking to people on the phone or WhatsApp and getting a sense of a story, so you're not making it up as you go on the job. You know what the questions are and what your story arc is and how that will develop and how that will flow from character to character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And interesting. Are you going to continue on this genre? Like, what is the what's next for you? And this is because this
Yeah,
is a really interesting
yeah.
segment of filmmaking.
Well, I'm going to Jackson Hole. Fingers crossed for P22. Very excited. It's his first appearance at
Mhm.
Jackson Wild. So
Mm-hmm.
we're all wishing him the best there. And again, I don't know what conversations are going to develop, but I've got my own ideas which I'm bringing to Jackson. But the beauty of Jackson is you don't know what conversation you're going to have, who you're going to meet, like I did with Lance and Alex, and where that might take you, and how we all have like shared interests, but how someone else's difference and interest may push you in a different direction or open up a window for you that you hadn't thought about. That's what I find really exciting about Jackson Wild, the kind of conversations that develop from that. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of, I feel like you've talked about this a lot in this conversation, but I'm just curious if you could distill down kind of one learning or one guiding principle that you would share with, emerging filmmakers or people who are trying to, learn from what you've done here. What would that be?
yeah, I think story is essential, but how are you going to get your story out? How are you going to get people to watch your story? You meet so many people who are very passionate, whether they're writers or filmmakers, and you can fall in love with your story, but you've got to get other people to fall in love with it as well for it to have an impact. And especially now, we as storytellers, as conservationists, you're not just making films for yourself, you're making for a worldwide audience. And what are those common themes that we all care about? Um, we all care about having a home. We can all relate to P22 because he was homeless. And so he crossed two freeways in search of a home, and he never found a mate. He was always looking for a mate, but because
Mm.
because he was always dateless on a Friday night, as Beth Pratt would say, and which Angelina cannot relate to that, being dateless on a Friday night. So think of those kind of common human empathy which you can
Mm-hmm.
bring to your story. What are the worldwide empathetic things that we all relate to? I think that's a very important message to tell to conservationists, no matter what their story topic is. Whatever, if you can get people to care, then you've got a winner, I think. And people care. People passionately care about P22. We know that the formula is so successful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Tony, thank you for reminding us that we can make great stories with a very, very small footprint. And yeah, good luck at the Jackson Wild Film Festival. Yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and learning more about your P22. The legend lives on.
I know. Thank you so much, Tony, for
Right.
telling us about this.
Thank you. And please watch a film if you're listening. Go and watch it. You
A
can
Right.
watch,
Where,
you can watch
100%.
it on the
yeah, where
uh,
can people find you, find the production, any other information about your work?
uh, if you go on Tony Lee Morale Books, you can see a section on P22. And if Jackson Wild, you can see the film on the forum, and it'll be shown during the festival as well. And I'm sure it'll be shown worldwide after it's done its festival run.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Picnic Social. Our editor and producer is Rachel Werble.